I have a marine emergency. We had a hull breach. A scuttle blew open during the storm. We have water down in 3 hold with a heavy list. We lost the main propulsion unit. The engineers cannot get it going.
This distress call was the last anyone heard from those on board the El Faro. The lone container ship didn't stand a chance. But its fate was already sealed days before, starting with a series of controversial decisions by the captain. As more details emerged, investigators grew increasingly disturbed by the willful negligence they uncovered. In 2015, the El Faro made the headlines when it disappeared on the outskirts of the Bermuda Triangle. At the time of the last update, the American vessel was headed directly into the heart of Hurricane Joaquin. At dawn, not a single trace remained. The ship had vanished as if it never existed. A year later, the last recorded conversations were recovered, and they shed light on what had happened before the mysterious disappearance. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary when the crew began loading the ship on September 28th to set sail from its home port with 33 people and over 11,000 tons of cargo on board. The vessel embarked on its routine journey to San Juan, Puerto Rico. For more than a year, El Faro had been a lifeline between these ports, ferrying food, trailers, cars, and crucial supplies to the Caribbean island. It was scheduled to depart the next evening, but at 4:51 p.m., 3 hours before leaving port, the U.S. National Hurricane Center made an announcement. The tropical storm Joaquin had formed, and it could become a hurricane by the next day. Additionally, a warning was issued for an area east of the Bahamas, covering 73,000 square nautical miles. Now, this was nothing new for the El Faro's crew. A month prior, the crew had steered the vessel through the Old Bahama Channel as Tropical Storm Erica damaged Dominica. But this time, Captain Michael Davidson believed Hurricane Joaquin wasn't a significant threat, choosing a direct route from the St. Johns River to the Bay of San Juan, which passed through the storm's area. Like all hurricanes, the storm was steered by global winds. Trade winds from Africa usually push hurricanes toward the Caribbean, but Bermuda's high-pressure system can change their path, making them veer north into the Atlantic. Joaquin was expected to behave in the same manner. The only question was, at what point would it curve northward, and how far to the west would it move before it did so? Based on the NHC data he studied, Davidson believed Joaquin would make a turn before it met El Faro. However, some crew members doubted his choice, and sadly, they would be right. By around 9:30 p.m. the next evening, El Faro departed Jacksonville Port. According to centuries-old sailors' experience, the morning dawned red, an omen of bad weather.
Look at that red sky over there. Red in the morning. Sailors take warning. That is bright.
Captain Davidson and his chief mate studied Joaquin's route using the ship's onboard BVS weather system, which shows the weather visually and sends updates every 6 hours. The 5:04 a.m. update was slightly different. It had moved the storm's center south. The new data caused Davidson to move the ship's course slightly to the south, from 133 to 140 degrees. At 6:25 a.m., the ship's SAT-C terminal delivered the National Weather Service forecast, which was somewhat different. In 24 hours, it predicted Joaquin would be near El Faro's path. Meanwhile, the Bahamas issued a hurricane watch, expecting Joaquin to move west-southwest. The captain didn't seem to know about the Weather Service's forecast, which warned of 75-knot winds, gusting to 90 knots, and 27-foot seas. Still, he called the course change a good little diversion from the storm's center and reassured his crew.
Tough to plan when you don't know, but we made a little diversion here. We're gonna be further south of the eye. We'll be about 60 miles south of the eye. It should be fine. We are gonna be fine. Not should be. We are gonna be fine.
Everyone on the bridge agreed with this decision. However, they felt less optimistic. The chief mate predicted a rough night. Over time, the crew's anxiety rose. The captain, though, remained confident. He assured them the ship was strong, and he had weathered worse storms. The second mate was the most worried. She clearly voiced her concerns.
He's telling everyone down there, oh, it's not a bad storm. It's not so bad. It's not that windy out. Seen worse. I just trying to play it down because he realizes we shouldn't have come this way. Saving face.
12:22 p.m. Captain Davidson followed company rules by sending a midday report to their operator's parent company, Tote Maritime. He detailed the ship's progress 274 miles from Jacksonville, averaging 19.3 knots. It also mentioned normal conditions, north winds at 7 to 10 knots, and 7-foot ocean swells from the east-northeast. He briefly noted precautions for Hurricane Joaquin, without details. 2 minutes later, the SATC terminal delivered an urgent National Weather Service forecast. Joaquin had 25-foot seas and 70-knot winds, gusting to 85 knots. It was 300 nautical miles southeast of El Faro. At 1:12 p.m., the captain sent an update to the headquarters. However, the weather data did not match the official reports. Interestingly, he suggested taking the safe route through the Old Bahama Channel on a northbound return. It seemed odd to sail straight into an approaching hurricane as it moved away from the area while veering off course. By 7 p.m., the captain realized the hurricane wouldn't turn northward soon, so he adjusted the course further to the south. Changing from 140 degrees to 150 degrees would put more distance between El Faro and the center of Joaquin. At least, that was what he believed. Davidson withdrew to his quarters an hour later and would not return for the next 8 hours. During that time, El Faro confidently headed straight into disaster. As night set in and the El Faro pressed on, the officers on the bridge engaged in discussions about potential route changes. Some were more apprehensive, even reaching out to the captain in his quarters. But he didn't share his subordinate's concern and didn't return to the bridge. Instead, the captain responded via the ship's phone, saying they should maintain their current course. 12 a.m. The second mate took the watch and was surprised by what she saw. The course led the vessel straight into the hurricane.
What's he thinking? Every time we come further south, the storm keeps trying to follow us.
1:15 a.m. Satellite radio in the background confirmed that Joaquin was upgraded to Category 3. Approximately at the same time, the ship suddenly started to roll. It was the first sign of the stormy seas. The second mate called the captain and informed him of the situation.
We'll be meeting the storm and it isn't looking good right now. Right now, my track line I have 0200, alter course straight south, and then go through all these shallow areas.
The captain appeared unyielding in his stance. He ordered the second mate to follow up on his previous orders and change the course to 116 degrees as scheduled. Unfortunately, this maneuver was met with a strong wind heel, and the ship heeled to the starboard side. The second mate responded by correcting the course to 114 degrees, one that she kept until the end of her watch. El Faro was approaching the tiny island of Samana Cay from the northwest, while Joaquin was approaching it from the northeast. They were 71 nautical miles apart. Davidson was sound asleep in his cabin. The waves grew larger, splashing the ship's deck, prompting the crew on the bridge to look into the state of their life-saving equipment. That was a clear sign that fear crept in among them. Then, at 1:56 a.m., a giant wave hit the vessel, leaving large amounts of water on the deck. It was followed by another one and a series of others. The waves reduced the ship's speed from the usual 20 knots to less than 18. Even though the crew didn't expect to see the worst of the hurricane for another 2 hours, it was evident that they were on its doorstep. 2:53 a.m. The off-course alarm sounded for the first time. The second mate struggled to control the ship as powerful swells hit the vessel. The wind blew so powerfully that no one wanted to leave the bridge. Unfortunately, the crew could not know how strong the wind was, as the only anemometer, an instrument that measures wind speed and pressure, was broken. However, the Voyage Data Recorder, or VDR, noted a 58-knot wind at 3:30 a.m. The second mate made another course alteration to fight the wind, but she could do nothing to reduce speed. The ship was now sailing at 16.8 knots. 3:45 a.m. The chief mate arrived to take over the watch and found that the El Faro had developed a starboard list up to 15 degrees while gradually losing speed. The wind and waves were sweeping over the vessel from port to starboard, steadily increasing in strength. The chief mate further altered the course to reduce the list without much success. By 4:04, the ship's speed was already reduced to 10 knots. The second mate, who withdrew to her cabin, was desperate. She wrote to her mother in an email.
Not sure if you have been following the weather at all, but there's a hurricane out there, and we are headed straight into it. Category 3 last we checked. Winds are super bad and the seas are not great. Love to everyone.
On the contrary, the captain, who showed up on the bridge at 4:09 a.m., showed no concern for the situation. While the engine crew pushed the engine to its limits, needing to blow the tubes multiple times. This process reduced engine power each time. El Faro encountered a critical issue. Its main oil sump was underfilled, missing the advised 27 inches. This shortfall hindered oil flow to the engine, which is crucial for lubricating essential components. A sudden pressure drop risked halting the engine, potentially leaving the ship adrift in the storm. At 4:46 a.m., the captain tried to correct the list. He turned the vessel north, almost into the wind, lowering speed to 7.5 knots. But this decision was based on old data. The latest report showed winds of 105 knots and the storm's center just 11 miles away. 5:15 a.m. Chaos reigned on the bridge. The ship listed 18 degrees starboard, moving at 5.8 knots. The riding crew supervisor reported things were wildly moving on deck 2. As if the situation didn't bother him, the captain was heard.
Only gonna get better from here. We're on the backside of it.
Unfortunately, things didn't get better. The ship started taking water on the stern, and the speed dropped to 4 knots. The water broke down into hold 3 through the open scuttle on deck 2, causing several vehicles to go loose.
The only way to do a counter on this is to fill the port side ramp tank up.
Captain Davidson aimed to correct the ship's tilt to the right. He planned to move ballast water from the right tank to the left, ordering a turn from 60 degrees to 350 degrees. This allowed engineers to enter the flooded area and close the scuttle. Afterward, the captain ordered the ballast water to be returned to the right tank. This action restored the original tilt. However, the ship seemed to have gone beyond the point of no return. At 6:02, the second mate reported hearing alarms going off in the engine room. The water was flooding in, coming in through the ventilation ducts. 10 minutes later, the captain showed discontent for the first time.
I'm not liking this list. I think we just lost the plant.
6:31 a.m. The vessel's speed was 0.5 knots, but only because the wind was pushing it around. The captain finally ordered everybody up to the bridge. The second mate started composing the emergency message for the moment they abandoned the ship. But even then, the captain hoped the engine crew would restore the plant and save El Faro. He did not intend to abandon the ship, even though it had all the wind on the starboard side, a scuttle left open, and a significant flooding in hold 3. 7:01 a.m. The captain called TOT's emergency call center and requested a connection with a qualified individual to notify him of a marine emergency.
Are you connecting me through to a QI?
That's what I'm getting right now, is seeing who is on call, and I'm gonna get you right to them. Give me 1 second, sir. I'm gonna put you on a quick hold, so 1 moment, please. Your rank?
Ship's master.
Okay, thank you. Ship's name?
Faro.
Spell that. E-L...
Oh man, the clock's ticking. Can I please speak with a QI?
Got it, sir. Again, I'm gonna get you reached right now. 1 moment, please.
Hi, good morning. My name's... Just give me 1 moment. I'm gonna try to connect you now. Okay, Mr. Davidson?
Okay.
Okay, 1 moment, please. Hi, thank you for waiting.
Oh my god.
Just really briefly, what's the problem you're having?
I have a marine emergency, and I would like to speak with a QI. We had a hull breach. A scuttle blew open during the storm. We have water down in 3 hold with a heavy list. We lost the main propulsion unit. The engineers cannot get it going. Can I speak with a QI, please?
7:06 a.m. The captain contacted his ship's designated person on shore. While informing him of the situation, the second mate reported.
The wind is pushing us over. There's nothing we can do from up here.
7:13 a.m. The second mate sent the distress signal per the captain's orders. The water was massively breaking into a hold. The listing was getting worse, and the power was dead. The ship was sinking. At 7:27, the captain sounded a general alarm. ordering the crew to rally to the starboard side and abandon the ship. On the bridge, the crew was looking for their life preservers in panic. However, at that moment, there was little they could do. All lifeboats on the port side were submerged, while those on the starboard side could not be released due to the heavy list. The voyage data recorder recorded the last words of the captain and one of the able seamen.
Going down!
You're not going down, come on.
I'm a Connor.
No, you're not. It's time to come this way.
Silence. A couple of minutes later, El Faro plunged into the depths of the Bermuda Triangle. The crew of 33 stayed on it almost to the last moment. If any of them were lucky enough to make it out, they were left to the mercy of a wild, stormy sea. At 7:30 a.m., the Coast Guard in Virginia learned that El Faro was trapped in Hurricane Joaquin. It had lost power, was tilted at 15 degrees, and was unreachable. They sent an Air Force C-130, the only craft able to find and contact the ship. The Coast Guard tried to locate El Faro's EPIR beacon. This beacon automatically activates when a ship sinks. However, it only works with satellites in low orbits, which may not always be available. By 10:30 a.m., all efforts to contact the El Faro had failed. The Coast Guard asked the Emerald Express, the nearest ship, for help. Unfortunately, the storm had also struck the Emerald Express, preventing it from assisting. Meanwhile, the hurricane's winds increased to 130 knots. Approaching El Faro's last reported location was too dangerous. Even the Coast Guard could not get within 100 nautical miles. The following day, a Hurricane Hunter plane attempted to get closer, but was forced to return to Florida after sustaining storm damage. At 9:05 a.m., 26 hours after the first report, the Coast Guard made a tough choice. They postponed the search until the hurricane passed. Sending a helicopter into the storm was considered, but it would have been too slow without the support of planes or hurricane hunters. The search resumed on October 3rd once the weather improved. Rescuers scoured the area for survivors, finding only a few life rings from the El Faro amid an oil sheen and debris. A Navy plane, however, reported seeing 2 life rafts, one of which was El Faro's, but when rescuers reached it, they found it empty. One of the tugboats found another lifeboat, but it was too small to pull it in. October 4th. Late in the day, the reconnaissance aircraft spotted an orange suit with human remains. However, before they could retrieve the body, they spotted another suit and someone waving from the water. They marked the location of the first suit to retrieve later and rushed to the second location only to find nothing. When they tried to return to the first suit, they couldn't find it again. On October 5th, an Air Force radar system confirmed no large ships were in the area, enough for the Coast Guard to declare El Faro had sunk. Just in case, the rescuers continued searching for survivors. Unfortunately, they found nothing except El Faro's life rings and empty suits. The search officially ended on October 7th. The rescuers had been looking for 154 hours, longer than the estimated survival time of 120 hours. El Faro had sunk in very deep waters, making any hope of rescue diving impossible. The tragedy left the public shocked and puzzled, wondering why on earth a ship would head straight into a hurricane. The investigation uncovered numerous failures that led to the disaster. Many errors and oversights formed a long chain, making it unlikely for the ship to survive a Category 3 hurricane. First of all, El Faro was not sturdy enough to withstand such a severe storm. By the time of the incident, it was 40 years old and in bad condition. Built in 1975, the MV Puerto Rico was designed by Sunship in Pennsylvania. Initially, it served as a cargo carrier for semi-trailers. In 1992, El Faro was converted. This addition included more cargo space on Deck 2 and another ramped level. To balance the extra weight, 1,830 tons of iron ore ballast were added. In 2006, a second conversion turned El Faro into a container ship. It was now capable of carrying containers that were vital to Puerto Rico's food supply. However, this change increased the ship's weight and raised its center of gravity. To offset this, an additional 4,875 tons of iron ore were added. Despite these changes, the Coast Guard didn't consider them a major conversion. This decision was made under pressure from towed officials. The modifications made El Faro less responsive and harder to handle in rough weather. An experienced captain who sailed on it confirmed this. It was docked for 6 years before its 2014 Jacksonville-San Juan service. During this time, the owners neglected proper care, leading to issues. Staff called it a rust bucket after its service resumed. Tote, the company, focused on newer ships like the Marlin class. This neglect led to the resignation of the captains of El Faro and its sister ship El Yunque in 2015. Their departure was due to poor discipline, training, maintenance practices, and a lack of safety equipment. Another factor in the disaster was the poor cargo arrangement. Trailers were supposed to be secured on deck sockets called buttons. However, on Deck 2 of El Faro, some trailers were placed incorrectly due to space constraints. This arrangement increased the risk of trailers breaking free, especially those with heavy cargo. With 30 to 40 trailers potentially loaded incorrectly, a list was more likely. The biggest mystery is why Captain Michael Davidson sailed into a hurricane. He took over after the previous captain quit. At that time, 53-year-old Davidson had only been employed by Tote for 2 years. He arrived from another sea company called Crowley Maritime in May 2013, starting as the third mate and reaching the rank of captain. And Davidson had left his previous employer after an incident. The ship under his command got damaged and couldn't steer. He then called for 2 tugs to guide it safely into port. It's been rumored that Davidson's decision to do so caused a rift with his employers. In this company, Davidson was known for his imposing presence, but also for showing little interest in the small details of running a ship. Some colleagues referred to him as a stateroom captain, one that commands from arm's length, so to speak. However, negligence is one thing, and sinking a ship is another. The investigators first had to get their hands on the ship's voyage data recorder to reveal his intentions on the fateful journey. Housed in a protective capsule, similar to an airplane's black box, the VDR was vital for the investigation. Reaching it was a challenging task due to the extreme depth of the wreckage. El Faro's protective capsule was tough against pressure, shock, impact, and heat, but couldn't float. A team effort from the National Transportation Safety Board, the Coast Guard, Tote Maritime, and others was needed. On October 23, 2015, the U.S. Navy ship Apache began the search using various technologies. By October 31st, it had found El Faro's wreck. Unfortunately, the bridge, mast, and voyage data recorder were missing. In April 2016, the ship Atlantis and the vehicle Century found these missing parts. The Apache then returned in August 2016 and successfully retrieved the VDR, which was crucial for understanding the disaster. It held the audio from the ship's bridge, giving insight into what happened in the moments leading up to the ship's sinking. Even so, they could only speculate about what the captain was thinking while keeping the course that drove them directly into a hurricane. According to NTSB investigators, one factor that could have caused the captain's behavior was that his job security was in question. Even though he had previously been denied a transfer, Captain Davidson hoped for a position on one of Tote's new vessels. Inspectors found that the captain was determined to reach San Juan on time, no matter the weather. Tote officials said they rejected his first request for the Marlin-class vessel. However, they offered him a second chance. This was canceled due to concerns over his carelessness in ship repairs, failure to discipline a lazy chief mate, and past conflicts. His mental state likely influenced the captain's decision on El Faro's final voyage. He expected the storm to turn north and planned to stay south. He relied on outdated weather data. Moreover, his past success in risky situations might have made him underestimate the danger. He downplayed the storm, comparing it to experiences in Alaskan waters. This skewed his judgment. His poor choices and ignoring the weather's severity led to the tragedy. The ship's poor condition, company negligence, and bad cargo management worsened the situation. The disaster's aftermath was arguably a failure. The investigations led to safety recommendations, not charges. All 33 people aboard the El Faro were declared missing and presumed dead. Tote settled the wrongful death cases to avoid a trial revealing its neglect. We can't bring back the 33 lost lives, but their legacy lives on in improved safety in the maritime industry. Watch this episode next if you found this video interesting.
Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.